What is up, guys? In today's video, we're going to talk about why the DMRs are trash in Fortnite. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, remember to give it a like, subscribe to like some more, and comment down below what you think of the DMRs in Fortnite. When you think of the DMR, you probably think of like a sniper slash like AR hybrid that's not really as good as the ARs in like close to medium range, but really shines in those long range fights. Kind of like a sniper light, like not as high damage as a sniper, but it's a little bit more forgiving in terms of the fire rate. However, in Fortnite, the ARs don't really lose that much damage at range, so there isn't as much of a need for a weapon like this. In a lot of other games, you'll see like some of the traditional ARs really lose out on their range damage, and that's where kind of like those are the ranges where these DMRs can take over and be viable. But Fortnite doesn't have that much damage drop off for the red dot ARs, and the red dot ARs are also hit scan, while the DMRs are projectile. And if you end up in a situation where like the DMRs are so much more inconvenient to use at long range than the red dot ARs because of that hit scan nature of the red dot ARs and the projectile nature of the DMRs. So it's like it's something that's supposed to be good at long range and not as good at like close or medium range, but because it's projectile and the other options aren't, it just stinks at those longer ranges, and it makes it very inconvenient to use. Hit scan basically means the bullets teleport to the enemy the moment you pull the trigger, and this is how most weapons work in Fortnite. Like all of the ARs, the red dot ARs, the like the twin mag and the MK7, the SMGs, the shotguns, the pistols, all of these weapons are hit scan. You don't have to worry about bullet travel time, and you don't have to worry about bullet drop or anything like that. But with the DMRs, and then like also like the snipers and the explosive weapons, these are projectile. And what this means is that when you shoot bullets or rockets, in the case of explosives, they have to actually travel to the opponent. So you do have to worry about bullet travel time if the opponent is moving. And if you're fighting somebody at like pretty far range, you might have to actually worry about bullet drop as well. And that makes them very difficult to use, or not difficult, but it just makes them much more inconvenient to use versus people that are moving around. And like, let's be real, if you're fighting somebody decent, they're probably not just going to stand there and let you shoot at them. If you're fighting the AI, then sure, they're just going to stand there. You're not going to have to worry about this bullet travel time as much, and you could just sit there and shoot them, and that's great. But like, do you really want to choose your weapon based on what's good at eliminating the AI in Fortnite? And I have played a lot of games where every weapon is projectile, like Battlefield or Warzone, and I even liked DMRs in both of those games. But when you're comparing projectile to hit scan in the same game, the projectile weapon would have to do something really special to make up for it, like the snipers. Like it has the ability to one-hit kill, so it's like it is more inconvenient to use. You have to worry about that bullet travel time and the drop and the fact that typically it only has one bullet and then you have to reload. But if you do land a shot, you're going to get good damage on the body, and if you hit a headshot, you're going to instantly knock that person. So it does something like exceptional to make up for its inconvenience of use. Whereas like when you're comparing the DMRs and the ARs, the DMRs are more inconvenient to use, and they don't really have that much of an upside. They have a little bit more damage, but the damage difference isn't so ridiculous that it really makes it worth using. And even if you're someone who has a hard time like controlling the recoil of the twin mag AR, there's a scoped salvo augment you could take, which is going to reduce your fire rate and get you extra damage. And this lower fire rate is going to make it much easier to control the recoil for you, since it's not going to be kicking as much. And at that point, the damage is probably going to be very comparable to the DMRs as well. So even if I was someone who, you know, preferred the slower firing nature and like the high damage, there's no world in which I would rather take the DMR over like the scoped salvo twin mag. And then even like throw augments aside, I think the twin mag AR is better than every DMR we've ever had in the game. Like it's just not even close. And then Fortnite is also not an average shooter because there's so many movement options. I talked before about how like in Battlefield or COD, the weapons being projectile wasn't that big of a deal, and it was just the nature of the game. Every weapon had that disadvantage, so it was what it was. But in Fortnite, there's so many movement options, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying before about like, sure, the DMRs are good at killing the AI, but if you're fighting somebody decent, they're probably going to take advantage of some of the movement options, whether it's shockwaves, the rocket ram, soaring sprints, the glider redeploy with the roaming redeploy augment, I'm sure I'm missing some, the crash pads, the vehicles. There's so much movement in this game. If you're fighting for island, you know, when someone's rifting onto you or trying to rift away, like all of these things make the ARs so much better. And a lot of more medium range fights, you're probably not just going to like 250 to 0 somebody with the AR unless they're not very good. They're going to, you know, use mobility to try to reset that fight, and you might get someone really weak and then they start shockwaving away, and you're much more likely to like hit them with the twin mag AR than you are the DMR, I think. So like it just, again, there's a lot of situations where like having the hit scan weapon and being able to shoot people that are difficult to hit is heavily in your favor in Fortnite, especially this season. We have a lot of mobility this season, and with how fights play out around Island and Zero Build, I'm sure, you know, you guys know, if you're not controlling Island, you could sometimes just be getting beamed by somebody who's up there. And then, you know, this goes back to what I was saying before. Even though the twin mag AR has damage drop off, I would much rather be on Island House with a twin mag AR beaming people than I would the DMR. Like it's really a no-brainer in my opinion. I think the only way these DMRs would really be viable is if we had a meta where the only ARs were the third-person bloom-based ARs, and then the only scoped ARs were the DMRs, because then you would have to choose between having a bloom-based weapon that's hit scan or a scoped, like, accurate weapon that's projectile. And then, like, each of them kind of has their pro and the con. The bloom-based weapon is going to be less accurate. The DMR is going to be more accurate but more difficult to use. And I feel like that would make a lot of sense. And this is, you know, actually what we had in Chapter 3, Season 4. If you guys remember, the AUG, or the Striker Burst Rifle, was vaulted. And then we had the Hammer AR, the Chrome Burst Rifle, and we had the regular DMR, which later got vaulted for the Cobra DMR. And even in this season where there was no scoped ARs and it was like bloom-based AR versus DMR, most people chose the Hammer AR over the Cobra DMR, and a lot of the people that like DMRs consider the Cobra DMR to be the best. So even when we had potentially the best DMR compared to a bloom-based weapon, most players that I know were taking the bloom-based weapon. So it's like that was, I think, the most favorable chance for DMRs to potentially become meta. And even then, I think most people preferred the Hammer AR, especially once we got into Fortnitemares and there was like the goo gun, and it was just kind of ridiculous to carry that. And then in the video I made earlier this week when the tactical DMR got added, when I was, you know, making a video about that update, someone commented and basically said that the DMRs aren't really good weapons, but the added utility you get from something like Bloodhound can make them worthwhile to carry in team game modes. Because if you tag somebody with a DMR and you have Bloodhound, it marks them for your teammates, and it basically gives your team wall hacks for a temporary time on that person. And so of that mindset, you'd be taking a worse weapon to like have that marking effect, and I think that makes sense. Like, it's not something I would want to do personally, but I agree that is probably the best aspect of the DMR. It's just that you can get Bloodhound and that you can mark people. That is more valuable than it as a weapon. But at the end of the day, I think I would rather have my teammates just using a weapon that's actually good at eliminating players, and then maybe just getting a knock or maybe getting more damage on that person, and then we can push it. Also, if you have somebody like shockwaving onto you and you're trying to hit shots, much rather have the twin mag AR over the DMR. But that's just my thoughts on it. I don't think the DMRs have ever been good in Fortnite. The Cobra DMR, I think, was the one a lot of people care about most or enjoyed most. And if you look back at that one that was more kind of suited for medium range over long range. Like, it was definitely not a long range DMR. It was more of a medium range weapon. And that was where it kind of shined, because that was a range at which like fights are actually relevant. It seemed to have a better bullet velocity than the other DMRs, but it also didn't have as high of an upside of like high damage. It was more of an AR than a DMR, it felt like. But even the Cobra DMR, I felt like just got outclassed by the red dot AR at the time. And I feel like as long as we continue having red dot ARs that are hit scan, I don't think the DMRs are ever really going to be that good in Fortnite. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of you that disagree with me, because there are a lot of players that like the DMRs, but I think if you take the time to like get good at controlling recoil, you're going to do so much better with something like the twin mag AR than you are the tactical DMR or the thermal DMR. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.